Okay, looks like it's going.
Commissioners already? I will now call to order the October 7th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Hillary, the time is 5:46 p.m. Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Eaton.
Here.
Hinders. Thompson.
Here.
Steiger. Samuelson.
Here.
Forst.
Here.
Reagonator.
Here. Item number 3 is the approval of tonight's agenda. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
Seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 4 is the approval of the September 23rd, 2024 minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Any changes to those minutes? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve the September 23rd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes.
Forst will motion.
Samuelson will second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Item number 5, I'd like to welcome all the guests that have joined us here in person and those who've joined us on Zoom tonight for our meeting. Are there any members of the public here in City Hall that would like to make a comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? And any public comment on Zoom on an item not on tonight's agenda? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to our first substantive item. This is a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning amendment to change 9086 South Arilla Road from AR Agricultural Reserve to R160 Single Family Residential. We'll open the public hearing at 5:48 p.m. Luke, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yeah, sure. So this is a pretty simple zoning amendment for a lot that was annexed into the city as ag in 2007, but was clearly pretty much set up as a rural estate lot at that prior to that annexation. And the property owner, Dale Weatherly, has requested this amendment. They've got an accessory structure they'd like to build on the lot, but those setbacks from the AR district are making it basically difficult or no building envelope to be able to do that. So this rezoning would take it to R160, which would give plenty of setback area to do that accessory structure on the property. So that's as simple as that. The applicants are here if you have any questions for them.
Would the applicant like to make any comment to the commission? Okay. Any members of the public who would like to comment on item number 6? Any questions from the commission before we close the public hearing?
Everything to the north is RE1, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is basically everything to the south is cemetery or.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there a reason that we are going to change the zoning versus just taking it to the Board of Adjustments or?
I mean, you could do it both ways. The changing the zoning just memorializes that right going into the future, so they don't got to come back and ask for other Board of Adjustment changes if they were to do an addition or do anything else. So we just felt like that was the best way to get it locked in and let them use it the way they'd like to as residents.
Any other questions from the commission? I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 5:50 p.m. And now, commissioners, we can deliberate on this item.
Yeah, I got no issues with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pretty common sense to change that. So.
All right, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the zoning amendment to change 9086 South Arilla Road from AR Agricultural Reserve to R160 Single Family Residential.
Samuelson on motion.
Thompson second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Steiger.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here, applicants. Item number 7 is a request from Warren County Land Company LLC for approval of the final plat of Valley View Plat 2. Luke, would you brief us on this item, please?
Sure, so this is the second phase of the Valley View development in the Valley View Planned Unit Development Zoning District. It is the western side of the development, completing a kind of loop road that goes from the east down to the south and then loops back around Walnut Drive. It is 31 single-family lots and the street lot for Walnut Drive extension, as well as Lot B, which is the future city park, and an outlot down here at the bottom, which is a catchment basin for the, actually, I apologize, that was already platted in the previous plat. But there's a catchment basin that's adjacent to it that transmits the stormwater from the development to the detention basin to the south. So everything's been done per city regulations from a final plat standpoint. We did a walkthrough last week. There were a few punch list items that they're wrapping up related to, I think, some manhole issues in the sanitary sewer. And then they're also doing the final grade of the park. We have a note to them to reach out to us when that's complete, and we'll get the Parks Department out there to look at it before we take anything to council.
Is there a applicant or applicant's representative who'd like to comment on item 7? Any questions from the commissioners or deliberation on this item?
I had a just general question. It says, you know, the parkland's just gonna be kind of a green passive space, right? Is this something that maybe if there's a future development that they might wanna, do we allow them to maybe donate funds to put playground equipment?
A future development could do that, yes. So this one there's gonna be a third phase here. So you can kind of see here how there's the empty space in the middle. That'll be a third phase with another road that runs north-south and houses on either side. And so those houses will back up to the park to the west, here along this kind of line of Lot B. That phase will be able to come in under the PUD and not have to do any other park stuff because this Lot B satisfies the park for all of Valley View. If a development happened like again to the west and it's a whole new one and they wanted to propose building a playground there instead of dedicating us land, they could go to the park commission, present that info. And if park commission liked it, they would recommend, then it kind of becomes a step up recommendation. Now you guys recommend to council. Well, in that scenario, that one park issue goes to park commission. They make a recommendation to you guys consider that recommendation, recommend the whole thing and any details on that to council, then they ultimately make the decision. So in that scenario, we pull parks in and give them some authority to say yay or nay to that stuff.
Is that something that you all would be like, hey, Mr. Developer, what about this idea? Or do they have to come to you?
It can be both ways. I think as we get more into developments happening in the next few years, we're gonna have a lot more serious conversations about parkland and accepting parks and what that means to maintain them and all that stuff. Luke is here. He's gonna give you an update on the city later on, and I know he's gonna talk exactly to that point. Because while parks are nice and we value them and we want places for people to recreate, they also become something that the city has to deal with, right? And we've done a really good job from when I started. We weren't getting good park ground in our developments to now I feel like we're getting solid acreage every time we get one in. But as we're doing that, the last park we developed was in the Orchard Hills neighborhood, and that was a park that was identified in plans in 2002, right? So we're getting all this other park ground now, and it's sitting out there as active open space, right? I mean, that's the kind of term we throw into an undeveloped park, right? So we're gonna have it graded, we're gonna have it seeded, it's grass, we're gonna mow it. Kids can go play ball on it and that stuff, but, you know, building playgrounds, I don't know, what was it, $800,000 for Warrior Park 5 years ago?
Yep.
So,
Grant money?
Yeah, that was just general fund
Okay.
or tax dollars.
so yes, to short answer your question, I do believe we'll be willing to consider that to be an option. Now, something to remember, like some state legislation probably 10 years ago said that cities cannot require that developers do that. So all we can require is that they give us the acres, right? So if a developer comes in and is like, hey, I think a park's good in my neighborhood and I want to put it in, we don't have the ability to tell them, you can't do that, you have to give us funds. We can allow them to do that, but we can't require them to. So our hands get a little bit tied in that respect.
Any other comment or deliberation on item number 7? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the final plat of Valley View Plat 2.
Thompson motion.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Steiger,
Aye.
Reagan.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Item number 8 is a request from Hunt House LLC for approval of the site plan of the Family Pet Veterinary Center. Luke, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yeah, if you'll recall, earlier this year, we did a infill PUD for this site. The current Family Pet Veterinary Center owner was wanting to do a new building and expand their business and invest in the community and do that on the same lot. And that was a little tricky with the current building there and whatnot, not wanting to shut down their operations and everything. So we wrote some creative PUD language to allow this new building to get built back behind the current one, let them continue operating, all that stuff. So this is the site plan for the new building. It does just contemplate the full build out of it. You can see, let me zoom in here. So there's the proposed building and then the phase 2 portion of it. So the ultimate build out is kind of an L-shaped building. Phase 2 is where current new building's at. So there's a bit of a phased approach there with how they build it. They've got to get the main building open, tear down the old building, then do the parking lot and all of that. But this site plan is just contemplating what the end product will be with its parking coming off of Richard George. And that building with the phase 2 addition onto it. So meets all of our code requirements dimensionally, parking wise. Back out here, architecturally elevation at the end of the agenda packet. They meet all the requirements for that regarding 100% materials on the building, the proper amount of window fenestration on the front side of the street side of the building. So really all in all, good quality product. It's like a good project and we would recommend approval.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to comment on item number 8? Okay. Questions from the commission or any deliberation on this item? Hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to approve the site plan of the Family Pet Veterinary Center.
Make a motion. Second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Forst,
Aye.
Eaton.
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Steiger.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Reagan.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Item number 9, city council update. George, anything for us tonight?
No. It's simple.
Item number 10, Luke is gonna step in and give us a city/economic development update. Thanks for being here, Luke.
Yes,
Thank you. Megan, you run a very efficient meeting. Let's see if I can keep going. All right, all good, it works. Okay, I've got more slides than I always allow. I always make fun of Luke when he puts more than 10 slides in a presentation. I have more than that, but I will go fast. First of all, thank you all for the volunteer work that you do. It's a crucial part of the city. And it's nice to see all the organization coming along, so that's awesome. All right, quick update. I am Luke Nelson, city manager. I think you all know that. Andrew might be, he's online. I think I'm not sure if I've met Andrew. I have met everybody else here on the group. So Andrew, hopefully you get a chance to meet sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
Jump right into it. First one, you all know most things development. I feel like you sometimes know things that are developing quicker than I do. But I did decide I wanted just to throw a map in here that showed the annexation strategy for the city, just in case you had any general questions, which, by the way, this is a pretty informal presentation. So if you have any questions, just interrupt me. Any questions? You guys have a general idea what we're doing with the annexation? We're heading out there. All right, awesome. Then I'll just move on. If you think of something later, bring that up.
That one house.
No, we still have, yes, all of them are voluntary except for one, unfortunately. So
It's just a property owner. There's no home on that
That's what I
property.
meant.
right, yes.
Sorry.
Yep, all undeveloped. This is the field house. You can see there's, this is a little bit older photo, but what I wanted to bring up is that the field house is complete. We're talking about a grand opening, I think, in November, which is just several months later than what we had hoped for. But nevertheless, that's moving along nicely. They've already said that they have a lot of reservations in place. And I just want to reinforce field house is a pay to play facility. It'd be great if we could offer everything for free, but unfortunately we need to pay the bills on the operations of the building. Our goal is at the end of each budget year to see the operations of operating the field house be funded by rentals and fees for use. Not the mortgage on it, but just the operations. So far, they're doing great. Every time I'm out there, I see one of our staff cleaning or doing something active like that, which is really nice to see. I think that clean facility will say a lot for Norwalk.
Can I hijack your
Please.
presentation for one moment? We've been doing some interviews and I was we've been using the parks facility for those, and I was chatting with their staff and they mentioned how there's been several groups of people that have come there to walk in the morning or to do some things, and then they've met other people, and there's this whole kind of group of folks that have kind of built some community through using our community facilities, which, you know, we talk in community development a lot of times about subdivisions and commercial developments and veterinary clinics. And a lot of times that community part of community gets lost. And so it was really cool to see that the thing that we put together was being able to be used by our residents as a place outside of their home and their work to get together and socialize and meet people in town and kind of continue doing that small town thing that we want Norwalk to be known for. So that was cool. Yep.
Would echo that with those with the toddler time. We take Lincoln up there every once in a while, and it always seems like we see a familiar face and I've kind of got to know some folks. So echoing what you're saying, Luke.
That's cool. Okay, next item. So you may be aware that we joined Central Iowa Waterworks, which is excellent. We've got a second water tower planned. Those two are not necessarily related other than they're both about water. One of the great things about joining Central Iowa Waterworks, as of, well, just before we joined, our capacity was 1.9 million gallons per day. And we were on a regular basis exceeding that number. With our membership, that went up to 2.3 million gallons per day. It's not necessarily that there was more water created, but essentially our capacity went up because now Norwalk has rights to additional water, where previously we were just buying water from Des Moines Waterworks. So that was their capacity, so to speak. So that was a great addition. Also, being part of Central Iowa Waterworks, lots of entities coming together through a regional approach, through economies of scale, we can do a lot more. So it advanced a large plant expansion that will move our capacity up to 4.1 million gallons. So just some real positives in us looking forward for our capacity needs. Now you look at that and you say, wow, doubling our number. So that should cover growth for another 15 to 20 years. Hopefully that gets us by for 6 or 7 years. And that's just part of the overall metro growth, the path that we're on.
So we build a third tower or fourth? It's just,
So capacity available to us and above or elevated storage, they're somewhat related, but not necessarily. But yes, we've already talked about where an additional tower might be in the future. We're working on an update to our hydraulic study for the entire community. And it's taking a look at those annexation plans, and it will help identify where a third and then a fourth water tower would be in the future. We'll just get those plugged into the CIP. Hopefully that's out there several years, but
do these memberships cost money, or how do you get, this is just so I'm familiarity with it. So what does a membership entail?
Membership entails rights to capacity. That's really the key item, along with being at the table of decision makers on what happens with the overall water system in the metro area. Where previously, we were just a customer purchasing bulk water from Des Moines. Now it's like we have a seat on the table making those decisions.
Are we on for good, or do we have to reapply?
We are on permanently until if for some reason we decided to leave, in which case we would have to be looking into our own water source. So that's unlikely, but anything is possible.
And then is there a cost associated with this membership?
Just our purchase of water. And then part of that, I should say, in addition to the purchase of water, is a separate amount that goes towards what they call capital or infrastructure. So while we're paying per gallon of water that we use, we're also paying a second amount that'll go into, for example, the plant expansion, or like that western feeder, that 16-inch main that brings water to the community. That's a separate expense. And each year, those numbers, if there needs to be an adjustment, each year we see an adjustment.
We had some of those costs at Des Moines Waterworks as well. And we collect every development, like with Valley View, when you saw it come through, Hillary invoices them several tens of thousands of dollars of capital charges that are meant to be the city's participation in helping our water and sewer capacity metro-wide grow. So we're not always just having our ratepayers foot that bill. We're getting some of that from the growth that we're seeing that necessitates that additional facility.
The mayor's on the board of trustees for Tom Phillips. So, and then I volunteered as an alternate. I'm the alternate. So I volunteered to be on the finance and audit committee, thinking they wouldn't take me because I was an alternate, but they put me on it anyway. So I got stuck. But it's very fascinating what they're doing. They all play well together. But it's like that incremental cost of water production is incredibly expensive. So that's why but it's going to continue to have higher demand for water. So it's the cost. The capital budget's like $250 million over the next 5 years. It's big numbers,
Yeah,
but you pay for it in your rates. Some's variable cost, some's fixed costs. So
Great. Any other questions on Central Iowa Waterworks? The next one, so some of these come from updates I do to different groups, kind of what's on my mind. This is one of them that keeps me up at night. This is the Iowa party control. So between our governor, Senate, and House, we're now through several years of full Republican control for all three, what they call the trifecta of our state legislature. Some people say there's good in that. I tend to think that there's probably more negative than there is positive. My biggest concern is that the amount of sweeping, fast, swiftly moving legislation that can move through all three branches when it's controlled by all just one party. And I want to be very clear in saying back there in 2007 through 2010, I was also in the city management world, not here in Norwalk. And I will tell you, the Democrats, it was just as much of a concern as it is with Republicans. This has nothing to do with party. It's the lack of balance is where the biggest concern, at least from my vantage point. I've had a chance to have a meeting with the Senate leadership, and they very clearly, in a one-on-one discussion, said that one of their key priorities is property tax. I recently attended Greater Des Moines Partnership. They had a summit just for the whole region. Governor Reynolds got up to speak, and she even specifically brought up that they're going to be working on property taxes. And when they say they're going to be working on them, likely what that means is additional regulations for us that would force us to lower property tax, which is great. That is spectacular. The issue is that just yesterday I was having the conversation with a local citizen and I was talking about apartments. And I said, you know, if we added a bunch of high density housing, that would quickly drive our retail base. And overall, that drives our tax base up and taxes low. And he said, you know, I don't mind higher property taxes if we didn't have to deal with a lot more or that high density housing. So, you know, when you folks hear that, when city council hears things, that was one person. So don't take that that's the entire viewpoint of the community. The point I'm trying to make is the more local we make decisions, the better those decisions are. Any questions on that?
Are you doing your dollars and cents thing on property taxes as part of this?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one I got that done in 3 minutes with council. So we'll see if I can beat that. You guys already talked about this, Elizabeth, great question. I'm glad you brought that up. It used to be that we need that land. So I'll explain the graph real quick. The red line is what our master park plan said we should have for parkland acres. The blue line is what we actually have up until 2024. And from there, it's more of a prediction. I added the green dash line, which reflects our park maintenance staff. And Luke Paris pointed that out very well, that along with those acres becomes significant maintenance. And one of the concerns is as we accept more actual physical parkland, with that comes an expectation of the public to put playground equipment out there, or bathrooms or shelter rentals. So a big thing that I'm going to want to make sure that we spend some time with our park commission, with city council, with you folks, is explaining that certainly some options of accepting alternatives to land might be something we want to consider in the future. Any questions on that?
So once they dedicate, like, so the Legacy Park and the Warrior Park and everything. So is it the Parks and Rec staff who have to go and do the trash? And do the maintenance of it?
Yes.
All the new trails we built, it's their job to maintain all the storm removal on that and all that stuff.
We are going to likely set up a tour with our city council. George, I don't know if I brought that up to you and the rest of the council yet. Surprise.
Not yet.
We're gonna get them out for a tour of all of these parks so that they can see firsthand the amount of acres. It's one thing to look at it on a map, but when you go out there and stand, it's eye-opening. And that may be something, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have some of your P&Z members go along on that tour, specifically on the parkland tour. Nevertheless, glad you brought that up. Next thing, library. You may be aware that the library has purchased land at the corner of Chatham Avenue and East 18th on that southeast corner. The new water tower is just going northeast of this site. So if you go past the new Quick Star heading east on Chatham, past the new hotel, go all the way east to the dead end, the library land is just south. It's about 6 acres. They don't need the full 6 acres. And you can see on this, I asked Gene Strable, our library director, for an update drawing. And you'll see they've kind of reserved that western portion right on the corner. There's all kinds of different ideas on what that might be used for in the future. But this is what the library is planning. You know, it's interesting. We have a community survey and I have some teaser graphs for you at the end about what how the community survey came back. But one of the things they talk about is safety in the community. And I always like to point out that our library, they're not just about books, believe it or not, they're part of why we have a safe community. Same thing with Parks and Recreation. When you give kids, when you give people that may not have the ability to go out and purchase things elsewhere, some of those free services that are provided at the library, believe it or not, that helps keep crime down, keep folks busy, especially on the education side versus not having anything for them to do. It helps our overall crime rate. Library, as far as timeline, that's up in the air. It really depends on how soon that project could be financed. It has to go to a vote of the people. If we can't finance it by reorganizing existing finances, in other words, if we're forced to have to raise taxes to pay for the library, that's something we need to know before that goes to a vote. I think the library board would like to take that to the vote within the next couple of years. I think that'd be pretty challenging, especially with what we're seeing from the state. But nevertheless, they'd like to see that go to a vote in the next couple of years. And I'm guessing within the next 6 to 7 years, they'd love to see the city break ground. I think that's an aggressive schedule. It's the hopes. All right. So put together a very short presentation on lower taxes, how to lower taxes, just to give somebody's mindset wrapped around what that might mean. Because it's great when you hear a politician say, I'm going to lower your taxes. If you hear that, and what you don't hear is what services they're going to cut along with it, you're probably not getting the full truth. All right, so what we're going to talk about is your property tax dollar. If you take your entire property tax bill and isolate it just down to $1, 45% goes to the school, 37% to the city, 15% to the county, and 3% the state and others. Might be a community college, might be a cemetery. There's various other things in that final 3%. When we talk about TIF, that percentage looks a lot different because the school gets less, city gets less, and a large portion goes to TIF. It's that 61% that usually goes off to incentivize a business or help install streets, water, and sewer for any business. With the other 3% to other. But I'm coming back to that property tax dollar, normal scenario, and we're talking about the 37% for the city, okay? So only 37 cents out of that full dollar is what we're talking about, what the city has to work with. Within that 37%, oftentimes we hear people say, listen, emergency services, that's really off the table. That's a key priority, so we need to leave those budgets alone. If we do that, that means that we automatically take over half of the city budget and we're taking that off the table for discussion. So now we're down to 17% of your property tax dollar that we can work with to try and lower your property taxes. That 17% goes to fund the library, parks, recreation, pool, community development, and so on. All those general fund services come out of that 17%. All right, so we talk about lowering property taxes. We went out to Rocket Mortgage to look at what they might call as an average home in Norwalk, average sale price, $330,000. So if we find out what that actual dollar figure is, we had to consider the rollback, which is 46%, which means you're only paying property taxes on a value of $151,000. Divide that by 1,000 to come up with your millage rate. Take it by our levy, which is $14.88 city. So the total amount of property taxes that you would pay to the city, $2,259. That's if you're in a home that has a value of $330,000. So subtract out public safety down to $1,130. It's $94 a month. Of $94 a month, you start to think, what's an impact on your personal finances? Something that shows up meaningful. I said cheap at one time, I'm frugal. To me, I think $30, that would move the needle. $30 would be a third of that number. So imagine if we took a third of those departments, a third of all their budgets, and reduced that. Imagine the kind of service changes, the amount of maintenance on parks, the programming at our library, possibly no pool to even operate if we tried to make that meaningful change. I try to put that in perspective. So when we start talking about lowering property taxes, when you zero in on what the number is, the reality is it's not a very big number. So I purposely kind of made this hard to read because the rest of the story, I used to be a big Paul Harvey fan. So we always talked about the rest of the story. We hear from folks about, well, it isn't necessarily the rising taxes, maybe just keep the numbers flat. But there's all kinds of factors. There's inflationary numbers, there's legislative changes. We get mandates from the state government on things we have to start doing. If you start doing a new service, there's a cost to that. City taxes are growing faster than inflation. Well, not necessarily. Some cities that might be the case. For Norwalk, we are not growing faster than inflation. A lot of that is because we have growth. Although some legislatures that I've spoke with in the past, actually some good friends of mine that ran for state legislature, and we had discussions about this. And I said, well, if a city grows, that doesn't necessarily mean they're growing their budget faster than inflation. It means their overall budget is growing to match with the growth of the community. So you tell us the levy is the same, but my taxes still go up. I've heard of people making the mistake of telling a citizen that they were lowering the levy, so their taxes are going to go down. And then they do an addition on their house and their taxes go up. And oh my gosh, that's the worst thing you could say to a citizen. So we tend to just tell people, here's what we're doing with the levy. We're holding it level. Norwalk, we've lowered our levy every year. I think it's been for the past 6 or 7 years. But nevertheless, your tax bill can still go up from even all those other taxing levels. So that's it. In a nutshell, there's any questions? The final things I was going to throw out there very quickly, this is city services. We just got back our community survey and I just pulled a couple graphs out. In fact, just yesterday we received this back. This is sent out across the community. They had over 400 responses. And this just simply compares what happened over the past 3 surveys. So from 2018 shows up in gray, the 2021 results are in blue, and then the most recent in green. So with several items, we saw some positive. There are some services that had a little bit of a decline as well. Part of what council will do is they'll do a little bit deeper dive into some of these things. And when we do goal setting, they will identify what areas we want to take a closer look at. One of the other ones, oh, you have to click on that to reactivate.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I moved the thing out of the way.
Yep. So this is perceptions of the city over those 3 years. Overall, with our top item is that overall the perception has improved. There's several items that did not go up as well. You'll get a chance to see all these once we release the full report. And then one of them that I wanted to show is, so we can take a look at ourselves and how we're performing over time, but what we really like to do is look at ourselves compared to all of our other brother sister communities. And consistently what you see, Norwalk is in green, with the plains or kind of the Midwest showing up in blue, and then the national average in gray. And as you can see, with the exception, I think it was condition of streets was the only one we were in line with. All the rest of them, we exceeded pretty significantly all of our peers. That is the last one. Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Yeah.
Luke Paris, any update for us tonight?
I don't have a lot. The one thing, I will send you more information about this as I get it, but the Polk County Housing Trust Fund is going to do, as part of their affordable housing initiative, they're doing tours around the metro of various projects and stuff. And so their fall bus tour is going to do North Warren County. So it'll be coming Norwalk and Carlisle. And I don't know if they're going to swing into Des Moines some or not, but it's going to be October 25th in the morning. So it's a Friday morning from like 8:30 to 11:30. It's free to register and go on and, yeah, so I'll send info about that if anyone wants to attend. And I'll send it out to council as well and other department heads, but, yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Our next meeting will be October 28th, 2024 at 5:45 PM. And I will entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
Samuelson will second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
Adjourned at